Good afternoon. It is 12:31 p.m. on Sunday, June 18th, 2017. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I've been up for a while, but I got busy doing other things. This is 5 more minutes. So, quick Luna update for anyone not following me on Twitter or whatever. Luna had her procedure yesterday. We're waiting until Tuesday night for biopsy results to know more. Right now, she's recovering but uncomfortable. And that's where that's at. But today is Sunday, so focus today is rewatch of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and this is for season 3, episode 3, The Painted Lady. I have a feeling like this is going to be a shorter recap, just because it's a relatively simple, straightforward episode. For one, we stay completely with Team Avatar. We don't spend any time at all with Zuko up in the Fire Nation capital. So we're staying down with Team Avatar as they're following Sokka's schedule, and it's kind of funny that he has this long scroll that looks like it's a Microsoft project timeline schedule or whatever. One thing I wish could have been made a teensy bit clearer is what exactly, like there's a lot of talk about staying on the schedule, and they're going to have to get up 43 minutes earlier or skip potty breaks or do meal breaks at the same time as potty breaks and all that sort of thing, but it's not clear what is actually on the schedule, other than the fact that they're planning to reunite with the army for the eclipse, the attack on the eclipse, which actually I feel like this might have been the first time we got the information that the eclipse only lasts 8 minutes. So I think that there might have been a general impression that, like, oh, well, yeah, the day of the eclipse is somehow this great day to do it, but it's actually only 8 minutes in which the firebenders will be powerless. But so other than the fact that they're off doing stuff for Aang and need to return by that certain time, it's not clear what else is on that schedule. But, at the same time, as a bit of business for Sokka, and to give him, his sort of taking charge attitude and, self-involved systems and all of that, a reason for them to move on despite passing through this town that obviously needed help. And it's fine for that, and it had some nice gags to it, but at the same time I couldn't help but be curious what else is exactly on that schedule, and especially since he's the only one that really seems concerned about it. Everyone else is kind of like, what is the big deal? But they're all kind of traveling together. Again, the only thing that I wish this part of the season had, and this ties in to exactly what I was just saying, is that I wish it was more clear what it is specifically that they're trying to do right now, other than preparing for this battle. Obviously, Aang still needs to learn firebending, but otherwise they don't have a really precise goal at the moment. And so that's why this episode in some ways feels a little bit like a filler episode. It's really just a little side quest. But it does raise some interesting questions along the lines of they've got, this larger mission, which is to defeat the Fire Lord. The Fire Lord is bad for everybody, and we got this big picture mission to think about. So when you come across a much smaller situation, it is nonetheless like, do you turn your back on these people who need help to follow the bigger mission? And, Katara's instinct is to not ever want to turn her back on someone who needs help. But at the same time, Sokka's got a point too, that they don't have infinite time. They can't help everybody. And so it's a question of, sometimes the concern is, if you stop to help all of these small problems, you're going to fail on the big one, and then it wouldn't even matter. So it's a fair question to ask. But at the same time, we can also recognize Katara's good heart and her instinct to say, where I see suffering and pain, I can't not do something about it. Now, that said, doing it in secret by trying to pretend that Appa is sick, that's maybe not the best way to go about it. And I don't know if I'm totally on board with Aang giving her kudos for that, especially for making him worry about Appa maybe being sick. But, like, it's one thing for him to admire that she wants to help people. And I definitely think he would be on board for that. But I feel like him being enthusiastic about the secret nature of it seems maybe what that's really coming from is this romantic chemistry that's been sort of on a very slow simmer for a long time, where Aang likes the idea of having something secret that's just between him and Katara. And I can't help but think that that's maybe the only reason he didn't react more to the idea that she was tricking everybody. But at the same time, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. For one, having this whole floating fishing village is kind of fun. But the idea, and also just the the metal refinery up the river causing pollution, gives us a lot of not nuance, but shape, context, world building, in the sense that we've already in several episodes gotten to learn the lesson a little bit that not all Fire Nation citizens are bad people. And in fact, there's lots of cases where the tyrannical government represented by the Fire Lord is actually just as bad for their own people as for everyone else in the world. Because here's this Fire Nation village being essentially ruined and their people starving to death because, nope, we need a metal factory, that's more important, we don't care about you. And then the idea of adding onto that the environmental pollution element of it, and you get a lot of just nice it's not a metaphor, but a sort of a key example of the kinds of bad things that the Fire Lord is doing to the land, not only to the world, but even to his own people. And so that's interesting. I like a lot of that. And of course, all of the business with Doc and Shu and so on, where this old guy who keeps putting on different hats and saying he's his brother and so on, I can't help but feel like, I don't know, my instinct was not, like, the final punchline where it's proved definitively that it is the same guy and he still denies it. Like, I don't know, I felt like it almost would have been funnier to find out that they really were brothers. Like, that seems like the better reveal to me, not the, oh, we finally proved it and you still deny it, but rather to discover that, oh, wait, somehow they are actually different. That, I don't know, I think that might have been a better payoff for that whole thing, but whatever. It's a minor point, and it's still amusing watching this guy. Especially, it gives us this charismatic old crazy guy to be sort of our window into this little town. But so, in any case, while they're staying there, they stay longer, and what we discover is that Katara steals some food from the factory and gives it out to everybody. And because they don't know who did it, they believe it's this ancient spirit that's supposed to live around there, the Painted Lady. And that just gives Katara the idea to make that literal. Ugh, my dog's whining at me. And so, so she dresses up that time, the next night and goes out, and then she uses her waterbending healing for people. And she knows that because this whole idea that they have to keep things under wraps, that's part of the reason I think that she thinks it's good to adopt this spirit persona, is because, as it turns out later, when she is revealed, the village is actually, even though they find out that it was Katara that helped them all along, they're kind of mad. It's like, what is a waterbender doing impersonating one of our spirits and that sort of thing. And they have to kind of be intimidated into recognizing how much he helped them by Sokka. In the meantime, Toph is kind of just hanging out. She doesn't seem to have a lot to do. Although I did especially love the combination of her earthbending and either Katara or Aang's waterbending to clean various bits of water. I liked that. And for everyone to be on this extreme schedule, the idea that they actually clean that whole river at the end. I mean, they kind of imply that it like only takes a couple of hours, and I can't help but think, oh, that seems, I don't know. How long did they really spend there? Especially given that they're supposed to be on this aggressive schedule. So, I mean, and we get some nice action, both with Katara and Aang wrecking the factory, and then using various combinations of their powers to fake the Painted Lady's spirit to scare off the Fire Nation soldiers. There's some good stuff in there. It's fun. There's one shot in particular during the wrecking of the factory that I liked, where Katara kind of lands on this railing, and then she starts doing the movements, but we don't see any water. We just see these windows behind her. But then what we realize is she's taking the water from outside to bring it in through these windows over her head, and it was that was pretty cool. And some great stuff. And then, of course, what we see eventually is that the real Painted Lady spirit thanks Katara for helping this village, which is nice. But so, like, here, I feel like I've really covered all of the really important bits of this, because there's not a lot going on in this episode. It is kind of filler, so we've got some interesting ideas, but it's not a very complex story. And so really most of it is just kind of business associated with this one little spin-off mission. So it's not like a bad episode, but it's also not one of the more interesting. And so I'm not really sure I necessarily have a lot more to say about it. Just some of the, like the imagery is cool. The way the Painted Lady looks is cool. Combination of the different powers and so on. It's nice to see more examples of this Fire Nation world building and all of that. But at the same time, we're lacking any of the broader picture, bigger picture stuff, other than just the idea of trying to communicate that there's this impending date of the eclipse and the battle. So, with that covered then, I'm going to go ahead and leave it here, and we'll return next week to talk about Season 3, Episode 4 of Avatar the Last Airbender, and I will talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes.